This is one of those videos that I really didn't want to have to make. I've had couple of experiences that I think everybody ought to know about, at least anybody that follows this channel and is interested in the video production sort of thing. I have had not just one, but two pretty bad experiences with Sony service and support, and so I put a warning out there. So, you know, I happen to love Sony products for the most part, but the trouble is when something goes wrong, you may be out of luck, or it may cost you an arm and a leg to get something resolved. So start first by telling you the story. This is a Sony camera that I've had. It's the HVR-V1U. I've got 3 of them. I haven't used them much for the last couple of years, but a year ago I decided that I was going to send one in for service. And it had had a problem keeping focus while zooming for the entire time that I'd owned it, and I knew from experience that that was just a back focus adjustment that needed to be made. And I confirmed on the internet. Other people said that that was kind of a known issue with that camera, and Sony would fix it with a back focus adjustment. So I figured if I can get the back focus fixed for a couple $100, I'd send it in, let them do it, and have another camera that I could use. Not one of my primary cameras, but certainly suitable as a backup, or when I needed more than 4 or 5, I could pull one of those out and use it. So anyway, I sent it in, and to have it just have that one piece of service done on it, just an adjustment. It doesn't require any new parts or anything like that, just an adjustment. So I sent it in. A few days later, I get a thing in my email. They're quoting me $900 to replace any broken parts that are in. So it's a flat fee to cover any service that needs to be done on the camera. So parts, labor, whatever. And I wrote back and told them, I know it doesn't need any parts, it just needs an adjustment. I need somebody who has the equipment to do it. I can't do it myself, so I'm asking you to just make the adjustment for me. And they wrote back and said, well, if you don't want to do the flat rate, then we're going to have to give you a quote on individual parts and whatnot. And I said, well, I'm asking for service, not parts, but I told them to go ahead and do that anyway. And then a couple days later, I got back a quote for $1,300 to replace the entire camera block assembly. And I knew there was nothing wrong with it. I mean, I'd been using the camera quite a bit, and I knew that the only problem was it had a back focus adjustment issue that needed to be taken care of. Just a simple adjustment. And that I brought him back and said, no, it doesn't need any parts. I just want you to make an adjustment on it. And back in several emails back and forth, a couple phone calls back and forth, I basically had to threaten to say, I'm never going to buy another Sony product again if you don't just do the service that I'm asking for. And in order, they finally agreed, but in order for them to do that, I had to sign a piece of paper saying that there was no warranty on the work. The whole camera was my issue. If anything was to happen to it, they wouldn't warranty anything. Even the back focus adjustment that they were doing, they wouldn't warranty that work. So I did sign it, and I sent that in, and they did fix the issue, and they sent it back to me. It ended up costing me $330 for an adjustment that probably took a technician 15 minutes to make. So a lot of money for something that should have been very simple, and I'm sure it didn't take anything, no real effort on their part to do it. And the whole process took over 3 months to complete. It's probably closer to 4 months. From the time I shipped the camera off to the time I got it back, closer to 4 months. So I was without the camera for 4 months, and I had to pay him that $330 just to make that simple adjustment. So strike one. All right, strike number 2. So I have 2 of these Sony SRG-300SE pound tilt zoom cameras. A couple months ago, my second one started intermittently having communication issues, and after spending some time troubleshooting, I found that basically the software was doing a soft restart over and over and over again, which I figured probably meant bad circuit board. The way that electronics are made these days, you don't typically replace individual components on a board. If something goes bad, you replace the whole board. And so I thought, okay, probably a bad board. So anyway, I pulled it apart. Both of my 2 cameras were out of warranty at this point. So I pulled both of them apart, took the main circuit board out of my primary camera, put it in my second camera, the one that was having the problems. Everything works fine, no problems. The problem went away. So that meant to me, the problem is in the circuit board, right? So I go on to Sony Parts website, I locate the part that I needed, I ordered it. Fortunately, they did get it to me pretty quick. It was only 2 days. I put it in the camera. Initially, it looks like everything's fine, but then I soon find that I can't change the camera's IP address. And this is a network-based camera. I need to be able to set the IP. You know, it needs to be on my local subnet, and if I have more than one of them, obviously they need to have different IP addresses. So the software, both the Sony Network Toolbox software, SNC Toolbox software, and the internal web interface both have places to set the IP address. And I tried to set it both places, and no matter what I did, whether I set it manually or set it for DHCP, whatever, it would always come up as 192.168.0.100 every single time. I thought that was rather odd, and so do a hardware reset where you hold the button down while it's turning on, blah blah blah. I did a factory default reset in the web interface. I even tried every browser available, so Internet Explorer, Edge, Chrome, Firefox, Opera even, to try and see if the browser was maybe contributing to the issue. Tried it on 2 different networks, my home network, my network for doing my video production. And actually did one more. I did an isolated network, which was just basically a router and a computer. And again, same thing every time. And to troubleshoot this even further, I pulled up one piece of software called Wireshark to see if the camera was even sending out the request on the network to get an IP address. It's called DHCP or BootP. It's not. It was not. It was not even attempting to get another IP address. It would always go back to that 192.168.0.100 every single time. So I called Sony and asked them for help on that, and the guy basically tried to walk me through all the same steps that I had already taken. Fortunately, he did believe me when I told him that I had done that stuff, so it wasn't a phone call that was too long. But ultimately, he concluded that Sony had sent me a bad board. This is rather frustrating news because, you know, it's a brand new part. It cost me $500. It's not exactly a cheap part, but they sent me. He thought they sent me a bad board, and so I had to. They don't do an exchange program with parts. You actually have to do an RMA and return the original one, and then reorder the second one. So at this point, I'm out $1,000 because I still haven't gotten the refund on the first one, even though I sent it back a while ago. And I ordered the second one, get the second board in. That came this morning. Put it in the camera. Does the exact same thing. And I call Sony. I said, "Help! You know, I put 2 different brand new boards in this thing, and it's not fixing the problem." And at this point, the guy starts to, his exact words were, "It's not our problem, it's yours." Even though I knew from all the troubleshooting that I had done that there's a problem with the boards that they were sending me. Whether it's a software issue or hardware issue, I don't know. But ultimately, it's a problem on that board that I can't resolve. And he told me that in order for them to fix it, I had to send the camera in and that I would have to pay for service. Since the cameras are out of warranty, they don't cover any service on it, even if the problem is something of their own making, which is the case here. So after a few more pleadings for help, the guy basically told me he couldn't do anything for me, and we hung up. And that's kind of where it stands. So bottom line is, I don't think I can get this camera fixed. If I send it to Sony, they're going to do the same thing I did. They're going to put another board in it. They're going to find out it does the same thing, and then nothing's going to happen from there. So I'm not sure what to do. I've got this camera. I mean, I can use it if I adjust everything on my network to be in that 192.168.0 subnet and make sure that nothing uses that 100 address. I can communicate with it that way, and it does work. But it shouldn't be doing that. You know, there's something fundamentally wrong with the board that's in there, the boards that they're sending me. So, you know, if I send it to them, I'm not sure that they can get it resolved, and they'll certainly charge me an arm and a leg trying to figure it out. So at this point, I'm really at a loss for what to do, and all I can tell you, my viewers, is that Sony products are generally great, but pray that you never have to get one serviced. You don't have to contact Sony for support, because my experience, they're 0 for 2. You know, they did ultimately get the problem on my first camera resolved, but it took 4 months and threats to get it to happen. And then they charged me an arm and a leg for what amounted to a minimal amount of service. And in this case, they're completely unwilling at this point to help me any further, unless I pay them a bundle of money in order to send it in. And ultimately, I don't think that's going to fix it anyway. So anyway, again, I don't like making these videos. I don't like taking these issues public. But at this point, I have no other recourse. You know, I've not gotten anywhere on email. I've not gotten anywhere on the phone. I've not gotten anywhere in any other sort of communication that I've tried to do with them. They're just completely unwilling to help me in this situation, and it's leaving me entirely frustrated and very much doubting whether I want to continue to buy Sony products if there's a competitor out there that offers something that's going to work for me. So, you know, I love my Sony cameras. You know, I'm shooting this on a PXW Z150. I love that camera. Aside from a couple little quirks, it's fantastic. And I've liked the other Sony cameras that I've had, and many others, like Sony monitors. I absolutely love Sony monitors and Sony TVs. But if this is the way I'm going to be treated, I'm seriously going to have to rethink that position and maybe consider buying stuff from other vendors, because they'll most likely pay more attention to someone like me, the little guy who can't afford to buy $1 million worth of broadcast equipment. You know, where I'm buying things like a few $1,000s at a time. You know, I think it's unfair to us, being the little guy, that we don't have the resources to demand attention in that situation. But at the same time, we need the products, and we'd really like to have the quality support that we're looking for. So, again, I'm not saying don't buy Sony. I'm just saying, if you buy Sony, just hope and pray that you never need service or support on the products, because in my experience, like I say, 0 for 2. You know, I've had 2 instances within the last year where they've completely let me down and not been able to solve my problem. So, anyway, if you have questions or comments, leave them down below. Sony, if you're listening, I would love to hear from you and see if we can get this resolved. See if we can get me a working camera again. You know, I've shelled out a lot of money on this thing, and right now it's difficult at best to get it to work. So, anyway, I do appreciate you guys watching, and we'll talk to you later.